Welcome back to Balmer's Workshop, and thank you so much for joining me here again, this time for part 3 of the rear bumper build for this 1975 Ford Econoline van. Now don't feel limited to a van with your bumper builds. The principles and practices that I'm going to show you in this video are applicable to any kind of vehicle that you want to put a plate bumper on. So again, not at all exclusive to the van, this just happens to be the vehicle that's in the shop right now. If you haven't watched part 1 and part 2 of the video, please do. They will be critical in terms of getting you up to speed and getting you to this point so that we're all on the same page here. You see me here making just a couple of adjustments to these plates that I've gotten back formed from my supplier. Again, that was mentioned in part 2. The plates were all plasma cut out by hand here in the shop, and then I sent them out to my supplier to have them formed. By formed, that's the bending process. I marked them up for the supplier so they'd do a good job for me and get everything done on point, and they certainly did. These panels are fitting up beautifully, and I'm really happy with that. Using magnets to kind of situate things properly and get every panel flush, and they're now all tacked in place, and it's time to add the receivers. Now these top 2 receivers are designed to support a very large cargo basket that we're going to build for the customer in the future, and it's going to support a lot of weight. So that's why we went with 2 receivers to make it very stable and to stop any kind of vibration, and also to support a large load. So the top 2 receivers, of course, have to be aligned in perfect parallel. Otherwise, when we go to insert the cargo rack, the receivers will bind, and we definitely don't want that. So I'm making sure now to install my receivers absolutely parallel and true. And to do that, I'm using a digital angle finder as well as mechanical leverage, which you see here. It's basically, I've inserted a gooseneck from one of my bumper trolleys, which is just a 90-degree piece of 2x2 square tube, into the receiver so that I can manipulate it in pretty much any direction I want to, while checking my angle finder to make sure everything is true. And in this case, I've used an adjustable stand to hold the gooseneck in position while I did my tacks, and that worked out very well. The passenger side was just about perfect. The driver's side, however, was a little bit off, so you see me cutting the tacks here so that I can readjust that receiver, and I will do so again using that gooseneck in conjunction with my handy digital angle finder. They are an invaluable tool and an inexpensive tool that I would recommend to any fabricator or anyone doing any kind of a job that involves needing to know the angles of things. I'll include a picture of the angle finder on the screen now. There's a ton of brands available. You can get them online, you can get them in person at stores, so you won't have a hard time finding one. I paid less than $30 Canadian for mine, and again, just a fantastic tool. Not that it replaces all the old-fashioned tools like the builder's square you see me using there. I have had a ton of new subscribers lately, and I would like to thank you so very much for that. All the likes, comments, and subscriptions are very much appreciated. And speaking of comments, I have replied to most, if not all, and I hope that I've done a decent job of that. It seems like people are starting to get some useful information out of these videos, and for me that's really exciting. That's exactly what I'm here for. So again, thanks so much to all of you for watching and liking, commenting, and subscribing. And here we go, finishing up the receiver install with the center and of course toe receiver. I've got it clamped up against its support bar, and I'm using an angle finder again just to set the angle on that, which wasn't exactly perfect. It is pitched downwards, so I'm using a floor jack with a wooden block on it in order to pitch that receiver up into the correct position while still being clamped in place at the back. And then I'm going to go ahead and tack all that into place, which finalizes the receiver install. You might have noticed that I didn't use a welding blanket or any other non-flammable material to protect the paint on the vehicle while I was doing my tack welds, and that was a huge oversight on my part. Lucky for me, there was absolutely no damage to the paint, but there very well could have been, so don't leave it to chance. Always protect the paint when you're welding near a vehicle, and on that same note, always disconnect the battery on modern vehicles that have computers to avoid damage to them. It is the end of the day, Friday, and me and Jerry are just about ready to go home. See, Jerry's tired, aren't you? All right, so let's have a look at what we've got done today. The bumper is all pieced together except for the end caps. I still got to put those on yet. And you can see, I don't know if you can see my little line there, but I'm going to trim that out just a little bit to match the body line a little better, again because this side has been capped with a replacement panel. The other side fits up really well. I've added my 2 outside receivers for a future cargo basket that we're going to build for this thing, a massive cargo basket that will hold up to 500 pounds. And there's your other corner and our tow receiver in the middle. So when I go to mount my swing arm in this hole for the spare tire carrier, as it is now, if we look underneath, here's our hole where the spindle will come through for the spare tire carrier, the swing arm, and of course there's nothing here to mount to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece of 2 by 3 inch steel, and I'm going to cut it in such a way that it slots right in here and then can be welded along the top face of the bumper. It'll go past this point and all the way back and be welded in solid, and then the swing arm spindle will have a clean 3-inch drop to go through with 2 shear points. You'll see what I mean when I create it. But it should work out nicely. I've positioned my receivers just beneath the 45-degree angle, which gives me this cavity here, which is what I need to fill in order to create that swing arm. But I think that it makes for a nice look. We'll weld all these back sides, we'll weld all along here, and then we'll fill this area and weld that as well with a piece of tube, which is what I just described. And then on the opposite side, sorry, we should go to the middle first. I've put a piece of 2 by 2 by 1/4 inch tube to support the receiver for the center, and I will add some gussets coming off the back of that, or possibly up to the top of the bumper. I'm not quite sure yet. And again, over on the other side here, we have a receiver. This has some slag, because I wound up having to reposition it, and I blasted my tacks out with a plasma cutter, but I will build those back up with weld afterwards. And again, we will put some tube up here so that it's fully supported all the way to the top of the bumper, and it'll have welds all the way around. But in this case, of course, that tube will only exist above the receiver rather than coming out to the side, because we don't have a swing arm on this side. It's a single swing arm bumper. I have capped the ends now, as you can see, and the shell itself is all tacked together and really ready for weld up once I brace it. But before I get to that point, I want to add my swing arm mount, and that's what I'm starting to do here. So in this case, I've gone with a fairly light shell. This is a 12 gauge shell. Normally I would do 10 gauge or 3/16 even, if this was going to be a bumper that was used on kind of a hardcore 4x4 rig that was going to be bouncing off trees and rocks and all that kind of good stuff. However, that is not the case with this bumper. As you know, it's going on a 2-wheel drive van that's basically just a bit of an overlander and adventure van, so it's not going to be bashed around. So in order to save weight, I went with a 12 gauge shell, but that's really not strong enough to secure a spindle to, so I have added a support. This here is the back side of one of the outer receivers that will eventually support a very heavy-duty cargo rack, or cargo basket rather, and I have cut a piece of 2-inch by 3-inch by 1/8 wall, that's 3/16 wall, tube to fit nicely underneath the receiver so that I can weld that all around in all of the available areas, and I will cap this end as well so it doesn't rust inside eventually. But this hole is where the spindle for the swing away will go through, and you can see it's perfectly lined up with the hole in the bumper. So I'm ready to drop that spindle into place and possibly start tacking stuff together. So that's the plan. I may also add a great big gusset that goes in here if I feel it needs it. We'll see. I probably will. More or less done with the swing arm mount and reinforcement. We've added that 2x3 piece in there. We've capped it so that it's not going to rust inside. Obviously that will be welded shut, so there's going to be no water ingress through there, and everything will be welded solid. I tacked this gusset in place a little hastily because I didn't really realize, or I didn't think about the fact that I'm going to have really limited access to get in there and weld now. So I'll probably just knock these 3 tacks off and do my weld up and then add the gusset afterwards. But pretty much ready to brace this thing now and weld it up. I've added a, I guess you'd call it a structural brace down in here. This is the piece that I created. It's got a 45-degree angle to match that 45-degree angle. and it is 1 1/8 inch thick. It's a piece of 1 inch by 2 inch square tube or rectangle tube. It's 120 wall, so very strong, and I've added a piece of 1/8 inch flat bar on top of it, and that fits in there really nicely. I've got a great place for welding there and along here, and of course all along the other surfaces as well. So that will solidify this receiver really well, and it'll make it very much worthy of holding a heavy cargo basket. So that's the plan. Anyway, now what I can do is add a ton of bracing to this thing so that I don't get any heat warpage when I'm welding, and I think I can pretty much weld the shell up, blend it all out, and get that part virtually done. And then from there I can proceed with my swing arm by adding the spindle and building the swing arm. So that's what's coming up. Alright, so I am all braced up and ready for welding. It looks like a big crazy spider web matrix, but the point of it is to stop any warpage from happening thanks to heat when I'm welding this thing up. So this great big long bar across the front of the bumper is tacked, of course, to the ends and also to the brackets to stop any squeezing in that direction or any warpage in between. And then I've got a brace from each bracket out to the side of the bumper. Just move that so you can see a little better. To the side of the bumper, and then I've got the corners braced off of that, and also the intersection between my two plates there. And I've got 3 spots along this back lip braced, and of course all the same stuff on this side. And then we've got the top braced in 3 places as well across the span from bracket to bracket, and then we've got the top braced in 1 place between the brackets and the ends. Those shouldn't be so susceptible to warping. So that should be enough. I know it looks like a lot, but it pays not to have a warped bumper. It's incredible how much warp heat can put into things, even very thick steel. Not that this is incredibly thick, but very thick steel is warped just as easily as thin steel with the right amount of heat. So it's good to be very cautious about that. You put a lot of work into these bumpers to get them looking perfect and straight. You don't want to warp them by welding them. So this will prevent that. For you people who are either DIY or beginner fab, definitely pay attention to this. You want to brace these things in every direction you can really conceive of that they would bend thanks to heat. So there you go. Let's start laying some beads in this thing and get it all blended out and looking good, and then we'll do the swing arm. A lot of the weld up has been done. All the bracketry and that underneath has been done, and now obviously I'm working on the outside of the bumper. And what I want to do is get these seams welded up and blended out really nicely first, so that I can then run a weld bead for my receiver and leave the bead having it look really nice against an already clean surface. So this is my first pass. I built up my welds fairly heavy in this area and a little bit along here because the panel was this outside panel was depressed slightly in comparison to that, so I wanted to fair that in. So I ran 3 beads along there, but you can see that I still have a little depression, so I'm going to run another bead in there, maybe 2, and I'll probably run another bead from this point to this point and blend all that out so it looks really nice and smooth when I'm done. This side there was less to deal with, and it's turned out very well, but we have that same issue right there, so I'll run a couple of beads and that should pretty much be it for that side, and then I can go over it with a blending disc and soften the curve, or the angle rather, and match the radius along the bottom here and make it look really good, and get ready to weld the receivers in. Got my welds all finished and blended out now, nice and smooth and round, decent lines, and I'm ready to weld up my receivers. See again there, nicely blended. No more of those little depressions. Everything's nice and smooth now. But one issue that I had, if you look at this side, it's nice and perfect. Meets up, those 2 plates meet up just beautifully. But if we go to this side, it used to look like that, but now, if you look very carefully, you can see that this is about 1 millimeter higher, and from about, well, from about here, let's give you a different angle. There you go, that's better. Put you there. So from about here, all the way, mostly right there, to basically where my weld is here, it's bowing up on me. And the reason is because I've got a tiny bit of heat shrink, and these panels were just too tightly put together. They were a great fit, but too great of a fit, so they became a friction fit, and they've basically pushed towards the camera. And what I'm going to do to relieve that is run a very, very thin cutting disc in between them, just to open up a gap, and it should settle right back in. If not, I have a pony clamp here that I can clamp it down with. Okay, so that was successful. You can see my cut line, very thin cut line, but enough to get some weld into there. And now you can see that I can flex that very, very easily, and I'll be able to tack that in position nicely. Once I've tacked it, I may open the gap up the tiniest bit more, but probably not, to be honest. This isn't the thickest metal. It doesn't need a huge gap for weld prep. So I'll just probably squeeze this in by hand, tack it, and weld when I'm ready. And as we wind down part 3 of this rear bumper build, I'm going to weld up the spindle to which the swing arm will later be mounted, as you'll see in part 4. Now this spindle is welded at a true 90 degrees to the top of the bumper. Although the swing arm itself will not sit at 90 degrees, it will have a bit of an angle on it. The spindle does sit at 90, and that's an important thing to know. But we're going to go over that in detail again in part 4, and we'll talk about how to set your swing arm at the correct angle to compensate for the weight that's added to it, and lots of other details. So please come back for that. I hope I've covered all of the weld up and the procedures therein fairly thoroughly in this episode. If there's anything you feel I've left out, then please do comment and let me know. Or also, if there's any questions or other things you want me to know about, then comment about them. Thank you again so much for the recent subscribers. Please do like, comment, and subscribe if you find the videos worthy. Thanks again. Come back to Balmer's Workshop anytime.